Hi everyone, hope you guys are doing great. In today's video, we are going to discuss ASP.NET Core Identity, which we are going to implement in the same solution which we are working on, basically eShop web application. And for those who have joined for the first time, we have been creating e-commerce application which is consisting of ASP.NET MVC core, and where we have so far developed a controller as well as services, and EF4 have been used where we have used SQL Server, and then later we have deployed that on Railway platform using Postgres. So from there we are going to resume. But before diving into the code today, I'll be giving you a brief regarding how identity works in ASP.NET. So without further ado, let's move to the some theoretical thing, and then we'll be proceeding to. Okay, so ASP.NET Identity. What ASP.NET Identity itself is. Basically, it's a system for managing user. Even if you are going to develop any application, you somehow have to manage the users. Either you are going to create a custom user base where you are going to manage roles on your own, but Identity do provide some ready-made stuff for user and role, and you can think of this as a security department in a building. So you can work with cookies, claims, and external providers which are already there. So let's have a quick review of real world analogy, where you can think of your app as a building, and ASP.NET Identity is basically the reception. So from reception, usually users get an ID card, and only authorized users can access specific rooms. So you can think it like a hotel, so where only the guests are allowed to access their rooms only. So moving to the core concepts, when we talk about ASP.NET Identity, it do provide several classes using which you can perform certain actions. So application user is the prime class which you are going to use. Basically, it's going to inherit from identity user, which we'll be looking right after this slide. Then we are going to see a user manager. The user manager itself is a class and which allows creation or updation of users. And then we have a sign-in manager, which allows us to log in, log out, and we have a role manager. So let's move further. So for the application user, you can see that it's being inherited from identity user. So identity framework itself do provide a class which is identity user, but you can see that we might need some additional properties or features to be added. So you can see in the below of this slide, like application user itself is adding a full name, which is not part of the identity user. So we'll be getting getting more hands-on when we'll be looking into the code. Somewhat on a similar lines, you can see a new user have been created, and then we're using the user manager's create async method. We have created a user, and same goes with sign-in manager. You can use the password sign-in async for this. And these are like quick overview of the identity tables that we are going to see or use. It's going to be ASP.NET user, ASP.NET roles, and several other tables. So to use this, we have to modify or add certain configuration in the Program.cs, which we'll be looking when we'll be working with the code. And somewhat a similar example, a login controller or account controller we are going to use. And the certain bonus features you can see, like with this we have been provided with like email confirmation, password reset, any sort of two-factor authentication, and even the external logins for Google and Facebook would have been easily done using this. So we have reached the end of this. So without further ado, let's move directly to the code. So hopefully you have got a glance of how things are being integrated in an identity. So let's first try to see where we have left our application in our last video. So you can quickly see that we have our eShop application over here. So now we are going to implement a identity and a login system in this. So let's just quickly see one thing which I'm going to let you know. Like I have changed this project name to CKC. One more thing which I'm going to do right away is going to make it PascalCase, which is as per the standards. And with this being done, I have moved this project inside a folder which is part of the solution. I can quickly show you if you can quickly see, like the folder that we do have a web folder, and this is the one we are going to create. So let me just remove that. And with this being done, these are certain quick changes which I've pushed on the GitHub. So moving forward, so I do have a project, and let's just try to build it, and then we'll be proceeding further. So one more thing which I'm going to do over here, like I'm going to create or add a new project, and this new project is going to be a class library. So the reason is that I will be moving all the infrastructure related code. So I'm going to name this project Ckc.EShop and infrastructure project, infrastructure. Okay, so we have created this project, and let's just remove this class. So we have our project being tagged or added over here, and let's just add an identity folder over here. So let me just add a identity folder. So with this identity folder being there, I'm going to add a new class, and I'm going to name it ApplicationUser. The same thing which we have recently discussed in our PowerPoint slide. So this is going to be a custom class. So you can see I'm going to make it public, and the class is ApplicationUser, and I would be using the IdentityUser for this class. You can see over here that IdentityUser itself is not part of the namespaces which I'm currently using. So let's see, there might be, okay. So you can see we need to install a package which is like ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework. So let's just find install with package manager, because the reason I used to choose this is it does allow to find the right one. And as we have previously used the version 9.4, 9.04, let it pull the rest of the one. Okay, so we are going to use the same rather than using the most recent one. So let me just install this. Okay, you can see it's being installed. Now it's asking me to include the identity, and you can see the initial thing which we were discussing, like the identity user class, which is itself part of our identity framework. So we are trying to inherit it. The reason is that in case if we need to add any specific properties like full name, any date of birth, or any other additional information which is not being provided by identity user, we can easily extend it in our class. So with this being done, now we are going to proceed to add. Let's just add one more thing. Let's just add a view model. One view model which I'm going to add. The reason I'm adding it upfront rather than first adding the controller, because at that point of time we might be needing this. So let me just add a class, and in the view model I'm going to name it LoginViewModel. So LoginViewModel. So this is our view model class. So with this being the class, we just need three properties. So let me just add one property, which is the email, and email is there. And the second thing which I'm going to add is password, and the third thing is going to be like it's going to be Boolean, and it's for remember me. So with this being done, We are going to do one more thing, like we are going to add attributes over here, because this is a required field, because without this we can't allow the user to log in. And the same thing is one more thing which we need to add, the email address, because we need to tell that it's an email address. So somewhat similar sort of validations will be used for that. Same goes for password. And one more thing which we are going to use is data type. Data type password, the reason we are using, so it will allow the engine to identify that it's a password, and asterisks will be shown instead of like normal characters. So you will get to know more in detail as we will proceed. So I'll try to connect all the dots. Hopefully you are able to follow along with me. And if you still feel anything being missed out, feel free to share it in the comments. I will surely catch up on those things in the coming videos. So with this being done, let's just move to the controller. So we are going to add a controller named, let me just add a controller. So this is this controller, I'm going to name it accounts controller. So let me just add this. So let me just select account controller, and with this account controller, so we have the controller with us. Let me just remove the default index which we are not going to use, and let's just add the constructor. The reason to add the constructor is to inject certain classes. So you'll quickly get to know what I'm trying to achieve over here. So this is our constructor, and what we are going to do, we will be requiring one thing, which is user manager. So the first thing, if you can quickly recall, I'll be quickly referencing this as well. So let me just quickly go back, and if you can recall the three things which we have discussed. One thing was application user, which we have already used. Now we are going to use user manager for creation or updation of users, and the sign-in manager. So these are the two classes which we are going to inject inside our account controller. So with this being done, so let's just move and use the user controller. Sorry, user manager, not the user controller. And for user manager, we are going to provide the same application user class that we have used. The reason it's not like picking up, because we haven't referenced the project. So let's just quickly reference the project, add reference, and you can see the user manager is now able to use this, and we are going to name this user manager. So one thing is user manager. The second thing we need is sign-in manager. Sign-in manager class, and same goes with like application user needs to be used. So, and we are going to name it sign-in manager. So, and the things which we already used to do, let's just assign it to a private variable. So let me just do this way, user manager, and then we are going to assign it. And the second thing I'm going to do is use a sign-in manager, and which is going to use this. Let's just quickly create our private fields, read-only fields. So I'm just creating this read-only field. Let me just create another one. It's taking that much of time. So this being created. So two read-only fields have been like created. And one more thing which we might need later is a sort of cookie scheme. So let's just add a external cookie scheme, and we are going to use identity constants, and for that we are going to use external scheme. So and let's just quickly generate this as well. This is going to be a string field, so we'll be using a string for this. So with this being done, now we need to add a couple of actions. So let's just add an action. Let me just do this way, so it would be right away in the center of the screen. So we are going to add a sign-in action. So let's just add a public async. So as you already know, if you are going to use async, so task will be used and action result, and the name of the action is going to be sign in. So with sign in, we are going to use the string return URL, and it's going to be null because by default we'll be keeping it null. In case someone is coming from a URL and providing the return URL, so we can populate that one. So with this being done, a few attributes we are going to add. We are going to use this as a get call, and the second thing which we need to allow anonymous, like anyone without being authenticated can land on this action. So with this being done, let's just try to clear up. We are going to get the HTTP context, and within that we are going to use sign out async, and then over here we are going to provide the external cookie scheme. So with this, if any sign in have been already done, so we are just trying to sign out it from all the external cookie schemes. So that's one thing. And then within the view data, what we are going to do, we are going to capture our return URL which have been provided to us. So you can see we are capturing it, and what we are going to do, we are just going to return a view of sign in. So basically it will render the view. And the second thing, we do require another method which is going to be a post method. So I'm going to use similar name for this, like public async task and action results, and then I'm going to use same sign in, and this time I'm going to provide a model to this. So you can see, like I'm going to use the LoginViewModel which I have already created. So now you can connect the dots, like why I have created those model and the application user class first before jumping into this controller thing. And the second thing is again the string return URL, which again is going to be null. So with this being done, let's just use this. And again, we are going to add a certain attributes over here. This method is going to be HTTP post because we already have a get method. And over here, we are allowing it anonymous because it's still like the user is not authenticated. And one more thing we are going to do is to use validate entity forgery token. So this is applied to avoid any like token forgery. So with this being done, now let's just quickly capture the view data. We are going to keep it inside the view data, the return URL. So we have the return URL with us, and we are just saving it inside the view data. Now the first thing we need to do, like we need to check if the model itself is valid. So we are checking the state of the model, and then we are going to just give me a minute, and then we are going to use the SignInManager. So this time we need to get a result using await because this is a sort of an async method. And what we are trying to achieve over here, we are using the SignInManager, and using that we are trying to use password sign in async, and we are going to use model.email, and then we are going to use model.password, and then remember me, and then one more thing which we are going to use is logout failure false. So with this being done, let's see if the result is succeeded. Like if this is succeeded, so what we are going to do, we are going to return it back to a local URL. So like the page from where the person landed here on the login page, we will be returning the user back to there. So we are going to create basically a private method. So I'm going to name it RedirectToLocal, and I'll be creating this method in a while, so just bear with me. And the thing that we are going to use further is like result.isLoggedOut. If we get a logged out, so what we are going to provide, we are going to provide another view which is like a logged out view. So return, sorry, it should be return and then view, and inside the view we are going to provide a logout view. So with this being done, if the second thing is else, if even it's not logged out, if it's not succeeded, so then it means we need to set the model state dot add model error. We are going to add a model error, and we are going to use like string dot empty, and we need to tell that it's an invalid login attempt. And we are going to return the model back to the view. So let's just provide that model. And one thing more, I think we have added these. So over here, let's just return this. So we have nearly completed that. One thing is remaining. I need to create a method. So let me just state, you can see a private method have been created. The implementation is not yet there, but this have been like created. Let me just quickly tell you what's the reason why we haven't done it other way like this, rather than like why we haven't used this view thing. So there is one caveat, like if the URL is local URL. So what does local URL mean? If a person is landing on our login page from within our application, any URL which is part of the application, so it will be counted as a local URL. So we can redirect directly to that URL. So if we are already like sure that the user is coming from a local URL, what we are going to do, we are going to just simply redirect the user to the return URL. But in case if the user is not coming from our local URL, so what we are going to do, we are going to we can't redirect him back to the external application. So we are going to redirect to a particular action. So in our application as of now, we just have a controller and an index action. So we are going to use nameof and catalog, and then we are going to use catalog dot I think catalog controller. Let me just see. Okay, and that dot index. So this is the action name, and then we are going to use the catalog controller name. So one thing you might have noticed that I have used this nameof instead of using action directly. It's like if I can quickly show you, we could have used something like this. Let me just quickly do it for your sake. So we could have done it this way, and it would have worked too. But we are using it this way. The reason is sort of a type safety. In case any time later we modify this index action to some other action, or we have changed the name, so will be getting a compiler time error because there won't be any index action. So this is the reason it is a more of a type safe code. So, and it will allow easy refactoring as well. So that was a prime reason to use this. So it's I just thought of letting you know for this as well. So with this being done, I'm going to add a view now. So you can see, let me just try to build and see if the solution is in a buildable state or not. So let's just try to build it. So we have our controller available to us. What we are going to do, we are going to add a view now. And let me just add the view. Instead of using the index name, I'm going to use the actual sign-in name which we have. So sign-in view, I'm going to add the sign-in view, and you will see that account folder, within the account folder, we have got a sign-in HTML. I'll try my best to quickly add the model. So with this, new model, we are going to use the model LoginViewModel. So in this view, we are going to use LoginViewModel. Let me just add this. Let me get the using statement. Okay, so we have got the using statement with us, and let's just use these braces to add inside the view data the title, and the title is supposed to be login. So we have added the login. Let me just quickly add the code for the HTML. So one thing, I'll be adding those code, HTML code along with classes, but our prime focus is not the classes at this point of time. The prime focus is to see how identity works. So just bear with me, and we are just going to add this. So just don't focus on this as of now. We'll be discussing it later. So within that div, we are just adding a class and using container over here. And within the container, we are going to use a li. I think you might already know the ul is for an unordered list and li is the list item. So we are going to add a class, and this is going to be an active class. And you can see within the IntelliSense, the bootstrap classes are getting pulled. And let's just add a style which we are going to use. We are going to use a margin right, and with the margin right, we are going to use 65 pixels, and we have that li to have login. So let's just use login over here, and seems like something is being missed out. I don't know, missing a colon. Okay, sorry. So it should be like this. So so a ul and li have been added, and within this div we have. So let's just add another div, which is again going to be a class of container, and this is going to be a login container. What we are trying to do, beneath our banner, we need to add a login button or thing, which you can quickly see when we'll be doing it. So just bear with me. Let's just add the class name, and let's just add the container. So with this being there, let's just so one more thing we are going to add the div and the class and row. So with this being there, let's just quickly add further things like div. I'm just pausing here, and let's just add the HTML code, and I'll be quickly walking you through rather than typing each and everything here. So just bear with me. Okay, so I have added the code, and let me just quickly remove this additional code, and so I can quickly. Okay, so you can see we have a login button, we have a container, and we have a section, and then we have a form. So within our form, we are using account controller and a return URL being used, and it just says, are you registered or not? And with this being there is a sort of a validation summary and a label and an input for email and the password. And we have a checkbox which says remember, and with the label, as you might recall, that ASP4 is used to bind it with the a specific property of a model. So if I can quickly show you, you can see, like if I start typing, you can see remember me goes over here. So these are the things. Then login, then we have a register thing, and a specific username and password will be shown. So with this being done, let's just add another thing. So we need to add one more. I think I have missed one part over here, so just let me just add that as well. Okay, that was already added, but I just missed to scroll down. So you can see the script sections. If you might recall that within our layout, we do have a script section. So these scripts are being added from this view, and it will be part of the main main master page, or you would say, or the main layout page. So this validation partial script is going to use, I can quickly show you that as well. Within the shared folder, it have already been created, and it just contained two, like a source script to jQuery.validate and jQuery.validate unobtrusive. So these are our two libraries being used. One is, you might already aware of that, it's going to validate, and jQuery validate unobtrusive library is used to like fetch the data related attributes from the HTML, and based on that it do use. If I can quickly show you, these are the type of attributes. So these attributes, based on these attributes, our like engine inject some data type related things, and those have been used by that. So we'll see in action once we will be like running that. So let's just move forward. And with this being done, now I need to add one more thing. You can see we have the sign in like view, but we need our login to be included in the main page. And in our main page, there is within the layout, there is no provisioning to directly add this. So to add that, we need to have one more partial view which we are going to add. Let me just add a login partial, add a view, and I'm going to name this login partial. So this is going to be a partial view again, and I'm going to do the same. Rather than just typing each and everything, we're using the existing source code to save time and shorten the video length. So let me just, okay, so I have copied the code and I can quickly show you, then you will get to know what we have tried to do over here. We just use a if condition, and using this context, we are trying to see if the user itself is authenticated. So if the user is authenticated, we don't need to show the user any sort of sign in page, because user is already authenticated. So what we are going to show over here, you can see within a section we have a div controller, and then we have a form itself is like pointing to an action account controller, and it's pointing to a sign out controller. Then you can see within the section there is a image, and furthermore we do have sort of, you can see, order with index, and it do says my orders, and there is a image being tagged, you can see that as well. And the second thing we have over here, there is a provision to get like logged out. So you can see a log out sort of link is being there, and using JavaScript we are trying to submit that. So with that being done, now coming to the actual thing, like if the user itself is not authenticated, so what we are going to do, we are going to like show like a section where we will like use this account and sign in. So you can see this says login, and when we are going to click this hyperlink, so what where we are going to land, we are going to land inside the sign in action of our account, and this is which we are already creating. So we are able to use this. Now we need to somehow add this partial view inside our I would say the layout folder, sorry, layout view. So you can see we do have a layout. So within our layout, let me just go to the layout one, and beneath that branch and beneath that this section, let me just inject or add that partial view. So let me just add that partial async, and I'm going to name this login partial. So okay, so let's just try to rebuild or build it and see where we are and what sort of issue we are going to face. So I'm trying to run it, and let's see what happens. Am I able to see something, or any error is going to be thrown? So you can see a login error is there. I think some code is messing up. over here. So let me just try to clean that up. I'll do it later, but I'm trying to focus. You can see when I click on this, so you will be seeing unable to reserve a service for type. Which type? Like identity user manager, and it's for the application user. So let's just try to get that sorted. So within Program.cs file, let me just open that Program.cs file. We need to add basically the identity. So let me just try to add that user class. And one more thing before going to that, one thing you might have noticed previously, we have added a DB context, and I have changed the name of that catalog as well. So you might be changing like looking at that name. So somewhat on a similar line, we are going to add a new identity database. So the way we can achieve a database like identity is to there okay, so let me explain that again. So I have already told you that identity itself come up with several tables, which we have seen over here. If I can quickly go to that, you can see these are the tables which have been like created when we are going to use migration. So these tables have been created. So there is one way, either we can use the same database or either we can use a separate database. One suggested approach is to have a like clean approach where you can use a different database, and I'm going on the same lines. So we'll be having two database contexts, one for the actual data, that is for catalog, and one is for the identity. Hopefully you will get an idea. And one thing which I should have done, a context needs to be changed. I'll be changing this as well once I will be adding the context file. So with this being added, what I need to do, let me just add the builder.service, and we are going to add identity. So this time with the identity, what we are going to use, we are going to use the application user. Basically this is the class, and we are going to provide it like identity role. So let's just add the identity role. And what else we are going to need, we need to add that store like entity framework store. So add entity framework store, and over here we are going to provide a specific class. So I'm going to name that class AppIdentityDbContext. We haven't yet created that class, but think of that like we do have that. And one more thing, we just need to add one thing. So let me just do one thing. Hopefully you are following along with me, and if there is any issue or question, feel free to leave it in the comments. And you can see we are adding a default token provider. So this is going to use the default token provider, and we don't have the database context class with us. So let's just add this database context class. So rather than adding it in this, I'm going to add it in this same class inside our identity. So let me just add that class. I'm going to name that class AppIdentityDbContext. Okay, so you can see I've added that class, and let me just make it public class, and we need to inherit it from a specific class that have been provided by the identity. So let me just add, give me a minute. So we need to inherit from identity DB context, and over here we need to provide the application user. The reason is that we aren't using the default identity user, so we need to tell it specifically like we are going to use this application user. And one thing just to save ourselves, yeah, I think it have already been referenced. Something is missing. So okay, it's fine. So we have, let me just do this way, so we can easily see what we are going to do over here. So let me just add a constructor. So let's just add the app identity. And inside that, we are going to provide some DB context options. So DB context options, and again we need to tell that we are which class we are using, and this is application app identity DB context. Let me just close this so you can easily view, and the same options are going to be used. No, not this one. I'm going to use options, and you can see it's being used like to populate the base options as well. So we are passing it to the base of this, and with this being done, let's just add one more thing. There are certain functions like on model creating. You can let me just, okay, I think I should have used override. Hopefully nothing has been missed. Right on model. Okay, so these are the methods that are part of parent class. We are trying to override it. We are going to use the somewhat similar. So this way we have created our identity class. So you can see we are able to, let's just try to build it and see what is happening. Let me just run it. Okay, some servers are not able to construct, so we are facing some issue. Okay, I got I found the issue. Basically, one thing when we are trying to create this like DB context, we have missed one thing. We have copied this like code, but instead of this, we should have used like app identity DB context. So now we'll be able to do or run it properly. One more thing I'm thinking of is to like refactor it this class. Rather than catalog context, let me just rename it to catalog DB context. This is just a sort of a refactoring, nothing to do with current thing, but I think we should use DB context with all these. So let's just try to run this and see if it works or not. So let me see how it works or not. Now you see there is another error. So the DB context passed to the DB catalog must be a DB context option. So now you see we started facing some error in existing DB context. The reason is that when we have multiple DB contexts, so you need to provide which one you are referring to. So I think we need to do the same thing which we have done over there. Like we need to mention we are referring to this. So let's see if it works. Then you can see we are able to at least see this login, and if this login page is trying to render this sign in. So once because we are not authenticated, so we are getting redirect. Let me just try to figure out, this is some sort of annoying. Okay, I figured out one thing which I was doing wrong was this, like over here. After this await, I should not have used the semicolon. So let me just rebuild it again, and you'll see that semicolon is gone. So we should have avoided using this semicolon with this await. Now you can see we have our login page, and we have this login and the demo user. So let me just try to log in and see what happens. I've just clicked on login and some error occurred. The reason is that we do not have it says cannot open database. The reason that is that we do not have any sort of migrations being created, and we do not even have our database available, and even the sort of the user which we are trying to log in, that's not already created. So on somewhat a similar lines, we are going to use this seeding thing. So let me just add a seeding class. So let me just go to this, and I'm going to add a new class. I'm going to call this AppIdentityDbContext and seed class. So we are going to name this seed class. Somewhat on a similar lines, if you can recall that there were like catalog seed class, so we are using on a somewhat similar lines this class. So let me just do this. Okay, so I'm going to change this class to public as we have done it for the other classes. And let's just use a static method, so which we are going to call from our program file. So let's just use a static async. Let me just use the async and somewhat on similar lines. It's we are going to name it async SeedAsync. And this time we are going to provide the service provider to this class, so we can create different scope services to, you will see right away once I will be coding. So we have this, let's just start using var scope, and we need to use the service provider dot create scope. Let me just create this. Okay, so the reason for that, if you might have recalled from the previous previous video. So when this program or application starts, so basically the program.cs file is running, but at that point of time, no actual HTTP request is being sent to the server. So there is no sort of you would say any specific request coming in against which any sort of scope service is being created. So we are explicitly creating a scope, and based on this scope we are going to access those respective services. So I've just created a scope, and let me just add the context. So first let me just use our context. This is the context which I'm trying to get for this service provider dot gets required service, and the required service which we are looking for is app identity db context. That's one thing which we have got. Let me just wrap it up or just close this so I can quickly show you. So we let me just see what issue. Okay, semicolon is missing. So we have this context with us, and what we are trying to achieve with using this context, because if the database is not yet created, we are trying to migrate it. You might I haven't done the migration as of yet. I'll be running those migration commands as well, but just let me write the code. So this is going to run the migrate code that we are going to create in a while, and a database will be created, an identity database will be created, and against that we are going to save our user and each and everything. So just bear with me. So with this being created, let me just add further things that we require. Let me add a user manager class, because we need that specific user to be created. So let me just try to create a user manager class, and again somewhat on a similar lines scope. This time I'm from the required service, I'm going to get the user manager. And you might, by the time you might have already know that user manager, we need to provide the application user class instead of the default one. So let's just use that user, and we have our user manager with us as well. And let's just create a sort of a dummy. This is the sort of a I would say seed data. So let's just create a username, and I'm going to use the actual user that have been used in the repo we are using as a reference. So demo user at Microsoft.com, and again the password, I'm going to use a similar password, and this is going to be password. Okay, so I have used two string. So these strings are there. Let's just try to see if it do exist. So we'll try to get this user. I'm going to use await, and using this user manager, I will try to find by name. So I could do it by email as well. So let's just try to use, because we are going to use this email name, email for the username. So let's just use this for the username. And if this existing user is not null, because if it do provides us, then we need to return, because we don't need to do anything further. And if it's not null, then we are proceeding with this code and we are going to add a default user. So this time we are going to use this application user class. Let me just wrap it up this. So this application user class is being there, and what we are going to achieve over here, we are trying to use the username, because only at this point of time we are using the username, and we already have our string with us. So this user is there, and now we are going to actually call the creation of the user manager. So let's just use the user manager and let's use the CreateAsync. With CreateAsync, we are going to provide that default user class, object to this. And what else? We need to provide this password over here. So the reason we have provided this, because using this method, password hash will be created and saved inside the database. Let me see what okay, I haven't used the equal sign. So it's being resolved. If result is not succeeded, so we might know that there is some issue or some errors. So we need to find or log those errors, or at least throw exception. So let's just use a string builder, because errors which we are going to get is sort of a collection. So let's just use a string builder, and with this string builder, let me just use the new string builder. And for each, what we are going to get in the results var, we are going to use the for each. So var error in the results, result.errors. You can see errors itself is a enumerable, and we are getting multiple errors. So we are going to iterate over these and we'll be using it to append. So let's just append it, and append line I would use, and within the append line, what I'm going to use, like dollar, and the code will show the error code first, and then we are going to use the description. So description is going to be like error dot description. So this being there, and what we are going to do after this, we are going to throw an exception. So new exception, and this time what we are going to do, we are going to append, like we were going to say, fail to create default user. So at least we know that we can't log in with that user, and we are going to append our string builder over here. So with this being done, only last step is remaining, which is like creating the migration. One thing I'll quickly show you, that we have a migration folders over here, but this at this point of time we have moved our infrastructure code to this. So let me just bring a code for migration. So let me just bring that. Okay, I've copied the code. I'll be quickly walking you through this first, and then I'll be running it in the console. So we are going to use the .NET command, and then ef, then migrations, and we are going to add. So this is the initial identity migrations that are going to be added. So one more thing which we are going to do over here is to add a context. The reason is that we have two database contexts. One is the catalog context, and one is the app identity context. So what we are telling over here, like we are talking about app identity context, and then we need to identify or tell the project. So the project location itself is this, which is an absolute location from the existing path. And then we are going to add, and then we need to tell which one is the actual startup project, and this is here. So let me just copy this and go to the package manager console. Let it just open it up, and one thing let me do. So in the right away, you can see in this project one, I'm going to execute this. Hopefully this worked fine. So let's see. So it's going to start the build, and then let's just wait for it. So you can see, like we have our command have been run successfully, and the build is succeeded. And you can see over here the migrations have been added. So in this project, the migration have been added, and for the catalog migrations, we already have it over here. So now let's try to run it. But before trying to run it, let me just quickly show you the SQL Server, so you can quickly see that we have the catalog database with us, but we do not have the identity database. So let's just try to run this application. There's some error. Let's see what happens. Okay, seems like something is missing. So let me just, okay, basically SQL Server package itself is missing. So let me just try to use the local version. So it will be using the local version, which have already been included in the web project. And let me just try to run it again. So you can see that login is there. Now, once I click login, it will be landing here on the sign in view. And let me just log in. And there is still some error. Let's see what happens. And the login failed. And let me see, identity requested by the login. So let me just quickly see what actually happened. Either have been created or not. Seems like the database itself is not created. So give me a minute. Okay, got it. So what I actually done, I have added the seed class and I've added the static method as well. You can see over here, I've added that static method, but I haven't called that static method. So what actually happened, it didn't create any database. So within our program.cs file, we are required to add a specific code over here. Okay, so we are going to add our app identity DB context seed class, and then we need to add or use that static method. And within that static method, we need to pass like app.services, and then let's just get awaited and then just get results. So this way, now we are going to call this SeedAsync. So let me just try to call it and see if it works now or not. We are facing some issue. Let's see what happens. Okay, this error at times happens when I'm trying to compile. So let me just do it in front of you so you can get to know if you face somewhat similar error. So let's just clean the solution. And I just need to go to the folder. Let me just open the file explorer. Let me just remove the obj and the bin files. So inside this, let me just select this and this, delete that, and we need to go over here, this and that. Let me just delete, and let me just try to rerun again, and hopefully it should work. Okay, you can see it's working. So if you face somewhat similar issue, do try doing this. And this time I expect it should work. So let's just click on the login. We have the page over here. Let's try to log in. So you can see we have our identity working fine and our user is authenticated. You can see the log orders are there because this is not being implemented. So if I click on that, surely I'm going to get error, but we are not focusing on this at this point of time. So let me just quickly go. You can see the user itself is authenticated, and we can see the my orders and the logout. One more thing which I'm going to quickly show you, and let me just refresh this. You can see the database identity is being created. One more thing which I'm going to show you, like the tables that have been created. You can see couple of tables have been created, and let me quickly show you the users table. So users table is populated with the demo user that we have created, and for the password hash have been created. So there is no like plain password being saved. A hash of the password is there, so it's not recoverable. So hopefully uh, by this time we have nearly completed everything related to the identity, and I think we have already reached around an hour of video. So just give. Okay, so hopefully you guys have learned how identity works and how things are going to be used if you try to implement identity. If you still think there is something being missed out or something needs to be elaborated more, so feel free to share it within the comments. And if you think something else needs to be added, or you want me to add or like add any other sort of videos, feel free to share it within the comments. If you think this video add value to what you are currently doing, so feel free to subscribe and do share it within your circle. So thank you for watching till here. Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day.